Hello, my friends, and welcome. Can I get an ooh, ooh? Amazing. Thank you to the people in the audience and the people on stage for the ooh. I really appreciate it. We have all gathered here today in the Burbank room of LFG Con for the panel called So You Want to Make a TTRPG Actual Play. Every person that you see on stage today has produced and acted in TTRPG actual plays. So I'd go ahead and say that we're pretty good at this, right, gang?
Huh?
Sure. I've got to go. Who invited these people? Wowee. All right. I'm your moderator. My name is Jes Wade. You can find me on the internet as Jes the Human. That's Jes with one S. I do charity work, producing TTRPG charity content through Charity TTRPGs. Since 2021, I have raised over $330,000 for various causes through tabletop role-playing games. Thank you. And we're going to send it down the line.
Hi, my name is Cody. I am the producer for Blackwater. I'm an award-winning voice actor. My pronouns are she, they. You can find me on the internet at CodyBM or Paper Chest, and I'll send it one day.
Cool. Hi. My name is Aleks David Royt. Pronounced really normal, spelled so stupid. My pronouns are he, him. You've seen me on StoryQuest. You've seen me on Dungeons and Dummies. You've seen these hands make minis for some of your favorite shows like Encounter Party, Tales Unrolled, Critical Role, etc. And I'm going to pass it down to somebody who has a lot more to say and has a lot more IMDb credits than me.
I don't have that many IMDb credits. Hi, I'm Persephone Valentine, she, her. I am probably best known for being on Dimension 20's The Seven. I had my own podcast, D&D podcast called Fast Times at D&D High. I've been on numerous other shows and other stuff, but those are the relevant qualifications for this.
I'm Sam. I also produce actual plays. I work for Wounded Warrior Project, and so I do nonprofit work as well. We have like Lord of the Rings shows. Our next Imagine chapter called The Fourth Age. We have currently a Shadows of Gotham if you like Batman, nice, gritty, dark. But that's about it on me.
Hi there, I'm Adam Gonzales. I am the creative director and cast member at 5 Gems in a Trenchcoat. We're a award-winning actual play TTRPG podcast where we rotate GMs and game systems each season. We're on season 4 right now. Go check us out. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing. So that's us, gang. So let's go ahead and get into it. This one should be, hopefully easy. I'd like to hear about y'all's favorite and the least favorite part of producing actual plays. Cody.
My favorite part of producing would be seeing a finished, polished product that I am proud of and having people connect with that, especially with online TTRPGs. It is sometimes quite easy to see when people like something. There's a chat, there are comments, and that's it's quite nice and feels fulfilling knowing that all the work that you've put into the project is in fact connecting with people. My least favorite would probably be the deadlines or self-imposed ones.
Going down the line.
Yeah. My favorite. I love the community that I've been able to build by developing a lot of these projects. Pretty much everyone that I know up at this table and everywhere else, I would not have met if I was not making D&D content. And the content is great in and of itself, but the friends you make along the way, as corny as it sounds, is the biggest plus for me. The biggest negative, the overdraft fees in my bank account, for sure.
So are you saying producing is very expensive?
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Nothing about content creation really sucks until you have to start spending money on content creation, and then it's a problem.
I was going to say my favorite part is the people. The least favorite part is the people, but that's not true. My favorite part of producing actual plays is probably actually creating the story with my friends, creating all this sort of putting on the actual production. My least favorite part is editing. I despise editing with every fiber of my soul. And for my podcast, I had an audio editor, but I had to be very specific about things. So I was doing rounds and rounds and rounds of QA per episode. So I was basically also editing alongside. Hate it. Not fun. Don't like it.
Seffi, meet Cody. Cody meets Sophie.
Yeah, that's right.
I like editing.
Bold. How?
My least favorite aspect is, so I do actually all of my shows via live stream. So they are live and they are interactive. And it's very difficult when tech decides to be a problem and you have an audience actively there with players actively waiting. They're such a joy, but it's very difficult to deal with when you're trying to keep things in the mood as well. But my favorite aspect is relatable to or relative to the live streaming aspect. We have our community involvement because I fundraise for charity. And when I do any of my shows, people are able to donate toward different incentives or rewards that they can join in on the narrative or the gameplay change and really test our players and our GM. And it's been really lovely. So I love that aspect a lot.
Yeah, my least favorite part probably has to be the scheduling. I'm going to start with least favorite. It's when you're getting guests together or even just your main group together. Sometimes you're like, oh, we can't record for 3 months. Luckily, we do a lot of ahead scheduling. And I think that's another thing that kind of is frustrating is like we record like a couple months in advance. So sometimes we'll be sitting on an episode that I really want people to hear for quite some time. Mm-hmm. But then I think my favorite part of it is getting to see whether it's guests or whether it's the different GMs. Everyone tells a story so differently. It's this kind of thing of like everyone has this informed concept of how they're going to bring a story to life. And I think that it's really special to see stories come to life through different people's eyes.
Amazing. And so for myself, similarly to Sam, because there is a charity aspect, I love being able to see the impact that we're doing by just 6 goofy guys having a fun time on the internet together. It's really amazing to see that while we're being goofy, we're still making an impact, and the joy that an audience member can bring by being able to impact that live game in the moment with a donation to our chosen charity. So thank you all. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what is the bare minimum you need to produce a TTRPG actual play? I'd love everyone to kind of talk about their chosen medium that we do, because I know we have some folks that do just podcast. I know we have folks that just do like Twitch streaming, and then we have folks that do in studio games. So Aleks, let's start with you.
Literally so much pre-production. First of all, it's impossible to do in studio actual play alone. It's as someone who's planning on doing it, it is a mammoth amount of work. It all comes back to community. Starting with a good team at your core is so important. Having people that can effectively do the jobs that you cannot. In studio actual play has a different standard, I feel like, for a lot of viewers than it does for like short shows filmed over Discord. Like people expect it to be bigger, people expect it to be flashier. It takes a lot more time to create a show like that. It takes a lot more money. It's a lot more stress for players as well as production. I mean, honestly, like unless you have so much money and so many resources, just do it on Discord. I hate to dissuade people from doing it, but like it's hard. It do be hard.
Can you repeat the question exactly? I want to get the phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. What's the bare minimum you need to produce a TTRPG actual play in your chosen medium?
Yeah. Okay. So I am involved with studio actual plays. I have made and created both podcasts and stream shows. But basically, the requirements for podcasting and streaming are similar, but of different qualities. Basically, when you do a podcast, you need a good mic. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time making up for the recording process and like sound editing and things like that. Like you can do it without a like really expensive mic, but it needs to have clear sound quality. You need to have some quality control over like sound production, some sort of insulating factor, stuff like that. And then basically for stream on top of that, you need a camera and people to do it with. Studio actual plays, like Aleks said, take a lot more. Like cameras, crew, a bunch of people. You need to be very good at delegating. If you're going to start that, you need a lot of money. And it takes the bare minimums start stacking more and more and more the deeper into the production zones you get. I would say it's like from least amount of necessary production to most, it's streaming, podcasting, in studio actual play. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that either any of these mediums are inferior to each other, but the costs and the sort of expectations are different. Because even though podcasting doesn't take a camera or a webcam, you can do streaming with a basic webcam and a decent mic. Podcasting, you need editing. You need, if you don't have an edited podcast, I'm sorry to say, it's not going to do well. People cannot listen to audio that is unedited. They don't have the visual component that you have for stream. So it takes a little bit more than, say, streaming.
And actually leading just from that, you have to have the willingness to learn. I am very self-taught in all of my video editing and sound engineering, and I'm now also an award winner because of that. So it's just Google. Truly just Google. Everything was free. I found YouTube videos. I had to buy like Creative Cloud stuff for Adobe products, and that's what I utilize. But other than that, it's a cheaper alternative. And it also, I feel like it makes me at least more proud of the work that I've done, just seeing that. But you have to have a willingness to learn, and I guess the patience with it.
Yeah, back to the podcast thing. So our medium is entirely all audio. We're a podcast, but we did try to start with mics. And at the time, the computer we had, or cameras, the computer we had couldn't keep up with the mics and the cameras. So we just cut the cameras. We're like, we're a podcast now. We had really, really bad mics when we first started, and 100% the number of hours that went into like our first 2 seasons with pretty unwell, like cheap mics was way more than we spent creating, way more than any of the DMs spent getting it ready, prepping anything. It was so much editing and sound design. And to be fair, Kim and I became great sound designers and editors. We get a lot of notice for that, but it was because we had poor mics, and the first big spending we did post like getting the original like little stuff that we ordered really cheaply was really good mics, and it changed the entire quality and the entire like quality of life for our editing. But yeah, you really need to have the willingness, like you guys were saying, to learn. It's going to be really uncomfortable at first, and you're going to feel like you're doing really poorly. Then you're like, oh, I'm doing better. And you're going to realize how poorly you were doing right after thinking you were doing better. And then you're finally going to hit a point where some people are going to say something nice about your podcast, or people are going to say something, and it doesn't just feel like someone being like, oh, good podcast, but it feels like someone truly being like, oh, like that little dragon noise you guys added in here, that was really like cool. It sounded really like I was in my car and it sounded like there was a real dragon there. And there's little things here and there. And so the floor of it is obviously wanting to do it, fronting exactly what portion of it you want to do, whether it's streaming, podcasting, or I can't imagine how you guys do studio stuff and then going for it. But it's tough, but I think it's like worth doing.
And absolutely, I can't agree more. Everyone was so beautifully pointed out that it really just starts with the willingness to learn and sit down at the computer, Googling and YouTubing what you want to do, like how to work the programs you want to work, how to video edit, how to audio edit. That's exactly what I did, which is basically just if I did not know how to do something, the next hour was a YouTube video, just learning how to work Audition and Premiere and all these programs that want to fight you so hard.
Every single second, they want your blood.
Yes.
Absolutely. And they did not save your project. You have to save it.
Yeah.
Depending on the scope of project, it takes truly a team of people behind you in every single form, whether it is streaming or podcasting or in studio. If you have people you can rely on, you can absolutely produce what you would like to. Obviously, more on the technical side of things, if you're thinking, what is the bare minimum to have people watch what I want to do, stick around? In my personal opinion, it is audio quality. If I hear something and it is scratchy and unpleasant, then just inherently, like I probably won't stick around too long. So truthfully, the most important thing on technical side is if you have good sound, I think you can, like, people will stick around.
Can I bounce off that really quick? So when we say good sound, you need decent sound. Even podcast, like I did my podcast on USB mics, which is not how most professionals do it, but it was still decent enough that like we won awards for it. Like you don't need to do everything up front. Like you don't need to invest in the most expensive mics. Like if you are just starting out, like I think it's fine to go get the Blue Yeti mic. I think it's totally fine to go get that, which is still, it's like, don't get me wrong, price and whether something's expensive is basically up to you and your finances, but they're pretty reasonable price mics for the quality you're going to get. And if you have that, you can stream, you can do your podcast, you can do that until you can invest more into it, and that's totally fine. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, following that up, like you were saying, the cleanup portion is like really where it comes. So our first, I think like 10 to 20 episodes, you can tell we're like really getting there. We're having our growing pains in that like first season. And then there's like a stark uptick in our ability to edit and really clean it up past that. And then obviously there's the audio change with new mics, but we were getting noticed and we started getting like our first awards and nominations and things like that when we were still using our like poor mics, our not great mics, our not great quality mics. And those picked up all of the bleed.
Oh my God.
We recorded in person and it picked up everybody, and I'm loud. So it came through. Everyone's mic picked me up. And so the amount of cleaning up we did for those first like 2 seasons was insanity. But again, we still had the quality to get somewhere and to do things successfully without having the expensive mics and the expensive things. So like you were saying, it's just really that dedication to the cleanup of it.
Yeah. Also, the kind of mics you're going to get are going to be different whether you're recording all together in person or you're recording separately digitally. So like keep that in mind. It becomes actually more complicated. Well, it becomes differently complicated because you're like trying to build soundproofing or like getting a clean sound in multiple different areas. Yeah. But the problem is when you're in one room, you need sound mixing and a bunch of other stuff. It gets even more complicated. So, yeah.
Don't let that dissuade you.
No. We're talking about the logistics of it. It's fun to do. It's fun. It's fun. You should all
It's so
do
great.
it.
Everybody loves opening their computer and reading the initial message of your scratch disk is full. Would you like to format your Adobe Cloud files?
You know what? Let's talk about when you open up your computer and you're getting ready to produce. What programs do you live in? So I'm talking task management. I'm talking about audio editing, video editing. What do you live in while you're producing? Steffi, let's start with you.
Oh God, what is the name of the Sony sound editing program? Not Vegas, that's for video. I can't remember what we use. We also used Adobe, was it Premiere?
Yeah,
Audition. It was Audition. It was Adobe Audition and a mix of that and Audacity for us, plus Zencastr, which is an online recording app. Basically, the most important thing for me when it comes to podcasting is redundancy. You need to have multiple sources of recordings because eventually something's going to get lost. So we were always doing layers of stuff. Like we did most of our editing in Adobe Audition, and then we would use Audacity for recording because it was the most accessible thing for most of us and it was free. And then we used Zencastr to record our backups, and eventually we had a third with, I think, Riverside. Yeah. So that was the most important thing for us. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
How do you want us to hop around?
So we're hopping,
This way?
keep on going to the left.
So
Everything you own.
because all of my stuff is live streamed, I live in OBS.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but similar to you, because we also use Zencastr for a backup. We have our live stream video in case that's the last resort, and it has happened, but good cleanup has made it okay. But utilizing that and separating those tracks that you utilize via live streams too, it will help you later on as well, because you can go ahead and mute the other tracks that you have, so you could just get people's voices. But we also use Ping for video, because Ping has really good high quality options as well as larger room options. We don't use it for sound or vocals because you can't adjust audio in there, please. Why? But I actually utilize Discord as another source for ours because we can adjust the little bars. So that's very helpful. And also it has like their own innately built system for compressing people's mics, so it's not picking up everything, which is lovely. But yeah, multiple sources of audio. You want to do that? Yes, 100%. But yeah, OBS and all those.
A big portion of mine. So as the creative director, I do a lot of the reach out for all of our guests, and I also do all the reach out for like when we work with. We have a sound designer who makes all the intro music for everything we make. We're working on some songs for an upcoming season that we're gonna like release like a little co-album. It's a lot of stuff. So I reach out to musicians, sound designers. I work hand in hand with our artists constantly, and I grew up my artist. That's my cousin Tamlin. We're awesome because I'm like, hey, imagine like. A fish that like smelled like a dog, and then Tamlin would draw it, and it looks exactly like what I was thinking. And the only people that can communicate that well are people who grew up together. But a lot of what I'm on are Discord and like different communities.
Sorry, I'm still stuck on.
It was funny at the beginning, and then it had like a delayed secondary explosion.
The thing is, I'm so serious. Like that's the worst one. But so a lot of what I'm on is are like the Discord's communication, different ways to communication. I'm in people's DMs all the time. Like, hey, you want to be on a show? But so that's a lot of what I do for like the creative directing portion of it. We have like 4 different Discord servers for a million different things, and we're all in it on different chats that are locked and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's a lot of what I do there. And then obviously I start getting people's phone numbers and bugging them like, hey, like you haven't gotten us our season soundtrack yet. But additionally, I do a lot of the sound editing, not as much as the sound design, but the sound editing. We have 2 editing softwares because we're lazy, and we started with this one forever ago because I was helping a friend edit an episode of their podcast. They stopped making after 3 episodes, and I was editing their 3rd episode, so maybe it was me. But I don't know. I can't be sure, but they stopped after 3, and I edited the 3rd one. I can't be positive, but I edited that on a software called Hindenburg because they were using Hindenburg, and when we started our podcast, it was like, well, I still have this Hindenburg account, so we use that for our cutting because we've gotten very used to it, and then we do a lot of the cleanup on the like Adobe suites and things like that. And we kind of bounce it around a lot of different places, and obviously we record in a lot of different places like Riverside because I like to fly by the seat of my pants and just lost. We've lost a couple of episodes, but we just lost an episode.
I have re-recorded the entire lines of dialogue for an actual play podcast of my own. It is hell.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Also, when one of your guests who is recording locally hops on and they're like, hey, you were recording on your end too, right? And you're like, no. And they're like, it feels bad. You feel bad for them. You feel like it's your fault. They feel bad. But yeah, again, you got to get on all those things and make sure you're kind of doing the best you can, and don't edit your friend's third episode in the series. It won't go well. Please.
So if I want to end a podcast, what was that program I should use?
No.
No, you just subcontract Adam to work on it. On the 3rd episode, and then you're done.
I see. The podcast assassin. Thank you so much.
I've done it. And I'll do it again.
Can you aim at Joe Rogan?
I will.
Thank you.
Well, you do podcasts like Joe Rogan. What's your favorite Joe Rogan episode?
The correct answer is none.
Oh, regret. I started production on Zoom and OBS. So those were the 2 main ones I lived in, and I hated both of them. Just absolutely terrible programs at the beginning. Thankfully, they've, I think, gotten a little bit better. But as we progressed and moved to in studio and doing also podcasting content, I started using Riverside as well. Redundancy. Please record on your own system as well. So that way you have multiple recordings. As everyone has said, you will lose something. And thankfully, if you also ask other guests to have, as well as whatever recording program they're recording in, maybe have a second one as well. So you have their own home recording on their computer. So in case anything messes up, you have 2 or 3 copies. Then moving to the Adobe life, which is wonderful and not expensive. Audition and Premiere. Those were all of the main programs I lived in and learned to live in, and now have sold my soul to.
Yeah, my list is a little different. I'm sorry, I'm gonna break away from the mold. Blender, Unreal 4, Adobe InDesign. I have to do a lot of miniatures and kit bashing for a lot of different projects, so there's a lot that goes into that. Yeah, the Adobe suite is a lifesaver. Everything needs to be a redundancy for any type of media you do. Like, I think when we shot StoryQuest, we recorded in stereo and mono with overhead booms just to capture backup audio, so we had it. and then tripled each backup that we had for each mic. Redundancy. I feel like there's nothing you can't do with the Adobe Suite for any level of like what we make. That being said, you don't need it. If you just want a fun show to kick around with your friends, jump on StreamYard, spend $3 and just run it, save the VODs, and then just edit it in like Sony Vegas or Canva.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are going to go into some individual questions for our panelists, and we're going to start with Sam. So, Sam, as a TTRPG charity producer, can you talk to us about the production changes when charity gets brought into an actual play?
Well, I guess it also depends on the funding of your show. If your show's already a pre-funded show and your cast is already paid for, it's very different than needing to then sit there and think of the charity aspect. How can I get community involvement? How do we get the mission across of what we're trying to fundraise for without interrupting the game? So it's a lot of sit down, brain think, and make sure you have those ducks in a row so that it runs as smoothly as possible with the community. Because it's one thing to handle a table of 6, it's another to handle 60. So But did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add in when you're producing for a charity TTRPG game?
Have incentives on your screens. It's one thing to have it in the comments, but like, I'm telling you, it's great. Just have it rotating. That's what I do. And it has been so awesome. Actually, another thing that we do, because we have very specific, like a $5 curse or a $10 $10 curse, $5 bless situation, but it all adds to a collective bar of a certain amount that we have allotted. And then that way people can see a larger progressive goal, and then it repeats every time that it finishes that goal. So we have that continuation, and that like causes a really massive event in our streams. So having that accessibility too for people who may not be able to donate a lot, but they want to see things trigger even more, it adds to that larger goal as well. So you have to think of the aspect of those who want their involvement, because I think it's important to make sure that you can get as many people into something as you can. But yep, that's fun little producer of charity stuff.
Amazing. Thank you. Adam, can you talk to us about why diversity is a non-negotiable for you when creating and casting for actual plays?
Yeah, of course. So firstly, 5 Gems of Trenchcoat, we are currently an all BIPOC cast. One of our members recently left the podcast. Nope. He just wasn't ready for it anymore. We started winning awards. He got like kind of cagey about it. Love the guy, but he was like, I can't do this. I was like, okay, great. He's still my friend. We see him every Sunday. But so we're currently an all BIPOC cast, and we try to highlight as many BIPOC, LGBTQIA voices as we can when we have guests on and things like that. Inclusion is really important for us because one, podcasts, TTRPGs are already kind of non-traditional storytelling, and a lot of the media and storytelling we get on this side of things are very westernized. Hence why I find a lot.
You can say white. You
You're
can say
right. You're right. But so again, that's why I found a lot of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people and people of color love things like anime and stuff like that because they have the non-white and like non-westernized, pseudo non-colonialized like concepts that share throughout a lot of different cultures, and so you're going to get insanely differently informed stories and characters and character beats and story beats from BIPOC people, from LGBTQIA people, because they lived such incredibly different lives than your day-to-day white person, your day-to-day man. Like, you know, casting women is one thing because they've experienced an entirely different world, and they will play a character entirely differently, and they will make a story entirely differently. And so it's this thing of like, if you're being aware of who you're casting, you're going to find people who can kind of bring a story that's, I'm a firm believer that it's very rare for you to get an original story, but I'm very big on novel stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's the, sorry, I know this is individual, but I want to pop off on that. It's the, what I find is the easiest way to say this is that like there are a lot of stories and tropes that repeat often. Very rarely are they done with Black or Asian or like people of different experiences in mind. So you can have a story concept that sounds the same as Cinderella, but because you're adding people who are different fundamentally from the usual target audience, that story becomes different and something new and fresh. So it's the easiest way to refresh fantasy and sci-fi and stuff.
No, exactly. Thank you. There's different layers and like textures to this now, right? And now that like the character is Lex and Gorilla, there are different things we're going to take note of in the story being told. And so like I think it's so important. One, because obviously we're telling our stories as BIPOC people, but two, we're making it seen to other people in the space who I was lucky enough. My first D&D group was mostly Black and Mexican people. It was great. It was all my friends that I grew up around. And I know that that's not the same for almost everybody else who's ever played D&D. And so it's this kind of thing of that's not the only people who play D&D. And if that's continually perpetuated, we're not going to get more people like us telling these stories, right? And so we're not going to get enough stories that reflect what we want to hear or what should be told more of because they're interesting and compelling and complex. And yeah, so that's why it's hyper important to me. And again, not to say that we don't cast Black people, because we do. We love we love everybody. But I think that it's very important that we really make sure we share these stories as much as we can, right?
Very well put. Thank you so much. Cody, can you talk to us about what is important to have on an actual play overlay and why having clear visuals matter?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're producing an actual play, especially for stream, it is very easy to get caught up in wanting to like clutter the screen visually with like character art, lots of different assets and things. But I think the important part is that if it is clear and readable and I can understand at a glance who you are playing and what your stream is trying to accomplish, I would like to stick around much more, much easier. As Sam was saying, like having incentives on screen if you're doing a charity or trying to raise money, it is much better to have those in a section that is very clearly stating what you're trying to accomplish instead of having it necessarily in the side chat as well. That is good as well. I just find that sometimes it is very easy to miss, especially if you have a chat that is going quite quickly, as well as having color palettes that are quite consistent. That also adds to, again, just visual clarity and being able to understand what you're trying to put forth.
Absolutely.
Also talk about font. Just saying.
Also, only choose Papyrus. It is the best and most readable font. Thank you so much.
I don't know. I'm a fan of Comic Sans. Gotta give it to them. As someone who has grown in your content creating career, would you say that your overlays have gotten better over the years?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were.
Yes, I have switched to only using Papyrus actually, and I have seen a huge boom.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Would you say that what you were creating when you first started is a little bit different from what you have now?
Oh, absolutely. It's become much more simplified. I think before it was lots of assets of trying to be like the classic D&D dungeon. So like around people's borders, there's like lots of like old barrel and wood textures, and like I need 10 different shadows and 3 different overlay things behind the name to give it depth and that sort of thing. And as it's progressed, I found that I like the idea of the minimalism, especially because again, it becomes clarity of like I want to be able to actually read names of the people, read pronouns, read character names. If you want to have art, I love having the art, but having it maybe like off to the side, a little lower, not covering someone's face, as well as I like it when the cameras are larger. And I think that's what tends to clash. In a lot of streams, I see it's the overuse of all of these assets and the underuse of people's actual screens. I think it's maybe make up for camera quality or things like that. It's okay if your camera isn't the best, or it's a little blurry, or it gets sort of like this water effect over it because it's not in focus. That's fine. I just want to see it a little bit larger. You don't have to overcompensate with the overlay for poor camera quality. I still want to be able to see the emotions and the story that you're trying to tell and you portraying your character more than I would like to see the PNG that you found.
Can I actually tack on to that because of the overlay aspect? If you're going to have captions, put them in a very specific spot. I have mine underneath each person, but they are clear and concise with our overlays. But some people also have it all off to the side where it separates people's names. It's important to have captions. So if you can do that, make sure that those are also clear because it can muddle your overlays.
Absolutely. I can't hear without my captions. Everything I watch
It's
needs
true.
to have captions.
What did you say?
Exactly. That happens so often. Even I have to look at someone while they're speaking. I can't hear.
All right. So moving on to Alex.
Hi.
Hi. Where
Bye.
do you feel community is so important to you personally and to the success of a TTRPG actual play as a whole?
Oh, great question.
Thought of it yourself.
Yeah, I have, excluding everyone up here. Community is wildly important. Community, I think, is more important than like redundancies. This space is wildly more connected in terms of talent than any other entertainment space I've ever worked in. Everybody knows each other. Doesn't matter if you're a baby creator. Doesn't matter if you've been on Dropout. Everyone knows each other. The only way that a lot of shows grow by dipping into the community and utilizing the community. You're not going to make a product. Doesn't matter. I've done it. You're not going to drop a ton of money into a product and it's just going to explode overnight. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen without you utilizing the network that you build over the course of you making content to help push you forward and push your project forward, but also using that project to uplift the people that brought you there. And if you don't have that Ouroboros of communication going with your local community, if not the greater like TTRPG community, it's all kind of a wash. It's going to be you and your grandma watching every episode you put out.
What's wrong with that?
Well, my grandma's not here, so that would be weird.
So I wanted to bounce off of that and tell like a story of how my podcast sort of got started. My podcast released 2 episodes, but because of the connections that I had made and like sort of like people I know sharing it, we got featured by Critical Role 2 episodes in. So like it's very important to have these kinds of connections.
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't know anyone from CR at that point. This was before Dropout. This was well before anything else. But because I had connections online at the time through Twitter, I know the rip. Because I had those connections, people that did know these connected me to them. And then we got featured on Critter Hug and our podcast exploded 3 weeks into releases. So like, it's very important to build these connections, but also like, think of them as just as building friendships because you're building relationships with people that are doing the same thing you're doing. But also on top of that, try to keep in mind, be professional. When you become sloppy, it goes from having the benefit of these relationships to having the detriment really quick. And I know that's wild coming from me because I'm the sloppiest person up here, but you know, in general.
No, it's okay. You speak from experience. We get
I
it.
speak from so much experience. But yeah.
Well, Persephone, I'm so sorry to have you speak twice in a row, but we've got to do it.
Everyone else is sorry, but I'm not. I love to talk.
Well, can you tell us how you choose which medium that you're going to use for an actual play, whether it's stream, podcast, or in studio, and what are the benefits and costs of each?
Okay, so basically, I kind of covered this a little bit. I think in general, the most cost-effective versus reward format for actual play is podcasting. Because I feel like podcasting innately, if you're doing it properly, if you're editing, you're doing sound cues, you're doing music, there's more of an audience, I think, in general than for stream shows. Because people can like listen to the audio and go and know that they don't need to rely on the visual cues. So they can do a lot more other things while they're having it. They can listen to in their car. You get a lot more attention when you do podcasting. However, that does not mean that streaming or actual plays are worse. The benefit for streaming is that you can get it up and running faster. You also, if you're doing live streams, you can pre-record too and then put it on Twitch or YouTube. But the other benefit is that usually the audience that you have is recurring and comes back and you can see them. You can build a community with them faster. You can also be in chat if it's pre-recorded, talk to them. It's a lot more of a closer relationship. And sometimes it does get really big. Actual plays in studio are very high risk and don't always come with the reward. So it's a high money cost. Even if you are able to get a studio space for the cheap, or even film it in your house if you're able to rent cameras for cheap and so on and so forth. You're still going to need crew for that. The thing with the podcast and streaming is that usually in these productions, even the cast is playing multiple hats. Like for my podcast, 2 of the people on cast were our like art coordinator. One was our social outreach, and another person was our like producer for episodes. So you can wear all those hats. When you're doing actual play performance, you can do the aftermath stuff separate, like, and have multiple hats, but while you're filming, you can't film and be talent at the same time. You can't film and do sound at the same time. You need to have people that are focused on that, and that's money. The more people on production, the more it costs. So realistically, I think the most important thing is to weigh accessibility for you versus reward and like what the end product is. I highly recommend that, like, if you are sort of starting to dip your toe into the space, consider doing stream shows first. And there's like, I did a few before I did a podcast, but I think I would have been much more well situated if I had done my own streaming productions before podcasting, because like it takes a lot to get used to the sort of schedule of recording, to get used to the idea of banking episodes, to get to the idea of a release schedule. Live streaming sort of, it's hard, don't get me wrong, OBS is evil. But it warms you into that, and it's a lot easier to get up and go. Yeah, it teaches you how to deal with tech issues and a bunch of other stuff. So I usually recommend people start there and then maybe consider moving into podcasting. Actual play, if you have investors, actual play in studio, if you have investors or you have a reasonable amount of expendable income, go for it. But you're gonna need a lot of help.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right, my friends. I'm looking out at the audience. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask this lovely panel of people about TTRPG actual plays? I do this really cute thing where sometimes I don't leave enough time for y'all, and I want to make sure that I do that. I'm looking at you, and you're looking at me.
One of you better come up here. I will.
Someone kiss.
Yes.
What is something that you wish the person who started producing after, like?
Oh, us as when we started that new?
If you now could go back in time and be like, hey, you need to know this thing, what would you say?
So, like, what is the biggest piece of advice you could give to the folks in our audience who are interested in creating their own show? That's nuts, because that was the question that I would have asked. Wowie. All right, Adam, let's start with you.
Oh, we're starting with me. Yay. Don't edit someone's third episode. It's unfortunate. For me, a big one would be really iron out exactly what you want out of it. So I was like hyper neurotic when starting it. And I know not everyone is. And so I walked through every possibility pretty closely. I've obviously missed a few, but with our team before we started, because I was like, well, we need the release schedule. We need to know how many days, A, B, and C, and we need to record now. And I found the more I've been in the space that people have not done that, and really decide what you want out of it. If you want to, so when we started ours, we're like, the floor is that we're playing more games with our friends and we're also recording it and doing a fun project. The ceiling is that there's a chance we are able to monetize and do things like that and are able to be places like this. And we all recognized that if we crossed that threshold, we all wanted to be at the ceiling if we could. And then one of our members was like, actually, we got recognized at Gen Con. It made me uncomfortable. I don't want to do this. And so that's the thing, is have those discussions with all the people you're going to be a part of. If you're like, I want to be the next Critical Role, and your friends are like, it'd be funny if we hopped on call every once in a while and streamed it. Those are two very different things. Not to say that either of them have any more credence, right? Whether it's a hyper edited podcast or a stream of you and your friends playing, you're both bringing something to other people they can enjoy, but be aware of what you're coming into this with, because even if you think you've had all the discussions, you have not. And it sounds scary, but it's like, you want to make sure that you're not going to hit any severe road bumps. There's going to be bumps here and there. There's going to be hiccups, but if you hit something like insane, it's going to put a lot of stress, and you're going to have to figure out what to do in that matter. So really kind of sit down with the team and be like, if we got monetized, how do we want to do that? Because there's a chance that someone might be like, I feel like I should get 80% of it, and they don't edit. And that doesn't happen to us, but we've all heard horror stories, right? And I think that's one of those things is really work out the kind of things you expect and need from your team and from yourself and all that kind of stuff.
It's almost like a session 0.0 where you're talking about the production goals before you even get to your session 0 to talk about the game you're going to play. Amazing. Cody.
Yes.
And you also answered this
Whiplash.
question.
Yeah, I was like,
We're going down the line again.
okay, cool.
I could, but I won't.
Oh, you won't? Okay, thank you so much for coming. I
No.
appreciate it.
I think my most important piece of advice, that as much as we've talked about what it's going to take with a team behind you, possibly also money, whether it's your own or whether it's funding, it's going to be difficult. It is worth it. In my experience, I love what I do. I love being able to produce and put on these shows and tell these stories, and I find a lot of fulfillment and connection, and it's great. I think it's very important that you need to be passionate about what you're doing and not necessarily doing it because you think maybe you should, or maybe there is a chance that you could get famous or have people who you like know your name. There's a chance, yes, that you do succeed. There's also a chance that you fail. So I think make sure that you are telling the story that you want to, not one that you think other people want, or maybe other people need, one that you need. And I think that will help you through the difficulties that will eventually arise, whether it's with people or with money. It makes it worth it if you want to be doing it.
Alex?
Man, that was really well said.
You say something.
Is that how that works? Shit.
Use your big boy words, Alex.
I don't know how to speak if it's not in the context of actively playing D&D.
I know that's not true. I have to listen to you talk all the time.
That's fair. Main thing I would advise myself is start getting people to play Magic the Gathering with you way earlier in your career, and you'll move forward way faster. No,
That's not bad advice. It is the golf of the TTRPG.
Thank you for stealing my one-liner.
You're welcome. Sorry.
No, I would say exercising proper mental health for yourself and like letting yourself take a break is the most important thing you can do. A lot of times, especially when you're a baby creator and opportunities are being thrown at you left and right, it feels like you can't say no to anything. It doesn't matter if it's like a Joe Schmo actual play that like 2 people watch versus like now I have this other big opportunity, but they're on the same day and now I have to do both. It's okay to say no to stuff. You're fine. It's worth it. In fact, you're better off saying no to things. And like, if you burn yourself out, your product will suffer, and then your community suffers as a result, and your co-creators suffer. Like, you need to let yourself breathe. Don't do 2 cons back to back in 2 weeks. Don't make an actual play that takes 6 months to produce. Don't look at me.
We're doing MagicCon next weekend.
Yeah, I think all of us.
No, that's the biggest thing I can offer to like myself and a baby, because I used to run myself ragged. I would sometimes do 4 streams a day. There were times where like I would call out of work because I had to do 12 hours of games that day. So important to just like take a nap and cuddle your dog sometimes.
Absolutely. Seppi?
I will say, how do I put this? If you are going to be a showrunner, or you are going to, especially if you're a performer that's double dipping on doing something else with the production, it is very important that you delegate tasks and you also check your ego. And it is very important to do that, because if you push too much, or if you care too much, or if you go overboard, you're going to alienate people that you're with. And that's not good for a production or for yourself and your mental health. If you go into this, you need to go into it knowing that the players are important as a production, and you need to listen and communicate with them and anyone else who is working on this with you. And if you lose sight of that, your production will fail and fall apart. So make sure that you are just checking yourself and checking in with people about how they're feeling and what's been going on, because especially as projects get bigger, egos get higher, and that can be a problem for continuing the production itself. So just try to keep that emotional context when you're working on these things.
Sam?
Definitely kind of what Cody said, knowing your why. Like, why do you want to start this? And I mean, if you're here, you're already in a really good position, better than I think maybe quite a few of us, not learning ahead of time. But so learning as you go is very difficult, and I don't recommend it. However, there are ways to help with that, and it's just talking to people in the space. Even if it might be somebody that you think is out of your reach and they don't answer, send it to 50 other people who are doing the same thing, because everybody's going to have probably really good advice that's quite similar to one another. It's just dependent on who's got luck. But I think it's also making sure that you have clarity in payments. So I always straight up first thing that I ask, or not ask, put in my asks to guests or to castmates is, I cannot pay you because this is for nonprofit, but I can guarantee it's going to be one of the best shows of your life. So that's my selling point. And it's allowed for incredible tables where that money aspect, everybody knows where it's going. It doesn't feel like a heavy weight of, I don't know if I can pay them. I haven't gotten any sponsors. So having that weight already gone and that clarity there, unless obviously you are doing a paid show, then let them know up front. But yeah, because money is it's always a taboo to talk about, and people are very uncomfortable when it comes up, especially if you're producing. I am the nightmare that they're all speaking of, by the way. I am live stream, player, and production, everything. So, and then I'm post. But it's a lot. Yeah, good headspaces, know your why, take care of the people that are at your table, and have fun.
Absolutely. And then the thing that I would have given myself back in 2020 when I first started really getting into TTRPGs is just stop waiting around for other people to do the things that you want to do and just learn how to do it yourself. It took me a year to produce my first one, and then it took me 10 months to do it again. But hey, we're here. We did the thing.
And then now every single month.
And now every single month, every month
minimum
since September 2022. But I love it. I love the things that I do. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's just, I kick myself sometimes because I could have started this thing that brings me so much joy and so much community, which is so important to me, if I just wouldn't have waited for someone else to do it for me. With that being said, my friends, we have about 2 minutes. So we're going to rapid fire down the line, starting with Cody. Tell us the ideal, at least to you as a human being, the ideal TTRPG show length of an episode for your chosen medium.
Oh God.
What?
Why would you 2 minutes? That's so
2 minutes left?
Which I said rapid fire.
That's fair. I have the attention span of a goldfish. Short. 25 to 30 minutes.
55 minutes to an hour and 5 minutes, no more.
Podcasts can go up to an hour and a half. Max. Streams can be, I recommend 3.5 hours maximum. I know, but they're stream games and they're not edited. And for
That's a lie.
After. Well, they're live streamed, they're not. And for in-studio actual play, if it goes over 2 hours per episode,
That's
cry.
Yeah, live stream, keep it around that 3 hour mark. It's usually around the time that people are like, okay, I'll wrap it up.
Podcast, 50 minutes to like hour 10. That's like that sweet spot right there. It's like that 30-minute little gap you have. Stick in there. Stay there. If you need to cut stuff. People talk too much in podcasts. That's us. That's why we're on. Cut our voices. You don't need to hear us this much.
amazing. Well, gang, we did it. That was 60 seconds. Thank you all so much for joining us as we talked today about what it takes to make a TTRPG actual play. You've been a wonderful audience. We appreciate you so much. Make sure you check out these incredible humans and all of the shows that they produce because they are wonderful. Do we want to go down really quickly, one last time, your name and where people can find you?
Hi, my name is Cody, and you can find me at Blackwater Dnd on Twitch and YouTube, or Paper Chest on Instagram.
Aleks David Royt on social media.
Persephone Jade Valentine. I am at Persephorath on Twitch, Blue Sky, Instagram, and anywhere else.
Sam on Twitch. I'm Sam, SEUM, or you can always find me on Tuesdays with our live stream productions on twitch.tv/Wounded Warrior Project for our nonprofit shows.
I'm Adam. You can find me at Adam5GMs on just about everything. And then you can find our podcast at 5 Gems in a Trenchcoat or at 5 Gems Official on wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, amazing friends. Thank you so much.
Wait, who are you?
I'm Jes, and you can find me at Jes the Human. 1S. Thank you so much. Wash your hands. Don't eat paste. Go make friends. Woo!